Yo YouTube, GK's back with some more movie talk. This time, we're talking about Metal Gear Solid being made into a movie. There's a lot surrounding this. A lot of the news is pretty old, but we will get to some recent news as well. But first, just like our previous video with Tom Holland and Uncharted, we gotta get into some backstory. First off, Metal Gear Solid is made by Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima has recently left the studio. That will become important, but for now, the series is based on tactical spy, espionage, thriller, action elements, especially in the later games in the franchise. The core series is really 5 games. I don't count some of the other ones, and the reason for that is they're not called Metal Gear Solid. This is Kojima's baby, and when he left the project, it was really disheartening to a lot of fans. Metal Gear is a historic franchise, has one of the best convoluted, complex stories that make sense in all of gaming's history. And it's amazing that this might finally get a chance. I say the word might, but really, it's a lot farther than just might be on the big screen. Let's check out IMDb to get the details on what's kind of going on with the project. Metal Gear Solid, action, adventure, sci-fi. Metal Gear does have some sci-fi elements. It's not necessarily space sci-fi, but it is still kind of sci-fi. An advanced tank is stolen by a terrorist group and an elite soldier, Solid Snake, is dispatched to retrieve it. That's their little blurb for the story. Director, Jordan Vogt-Roberts. We're going to discuss Jordan Vogt-Roberts after I start talking about the writers here, Jay Basu and Derek Connolly, who screenplay and the writer, but a little bit more about Jordan Vogt-Roberts. He really loves the Metal Gear Solid, and he's probably best known for Kong Skull Island, The Kings of Summer, Successful Alcoholics. This guy is a relatively young director, and he's done multiple interviews, postings on Twitter about Metal Gear Solid. Hideo Kojima gave him his stamp of approval, and we'll watch a little bit of that clip right now.
But one of the things when I think about your work is you are exceptional at taking these influences that we've talked about and reprocessing them and reinterpreting them and making them your own. Right? They get filtered through your brain and they become this brand new explosive thing that's captured all of these people and people all over the world. And so my question to you is, as I now go and interpret your myths, as I embark on making a Metal Gear Solid movie, what would you say to me? Everyone's like, oh boy.
まあ僕と同じように皆さんの期待を裏切れと。
Do the same thing as me, betray your audience.
There we go. All right, thank you guys. Give it up for Hideo Kojima, the man.
Derek Connolly is a writer and producer known for Safety Not Guaranteed, Jurassic World, Pokemon, Detective Pikachu, which I actually really liked that movie. Derek Connolly and Jordan have worked on the same movies, so it is no wonder that they would want to team up again and create this world to life. There's so much more to discuss about Jordan that we kind of want to watch another interview that he did with IGN talking about the movie turned game, or game turned movie, and his overall passions. He says a lot of interesting things, so we'll watch a little bit more of that now before we get into the actual news regarding the movie, because it's very, very interesting stuff.
And I think part of the problem is that we've got video games are kind of they're a new medium, you know? Like you're in your 30s, you're a fairly young director, and it seems like you're one of the first directors out there who's really vocal and a fan of games, but also of movies. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what's the difference between the mediums and what's the problem with making movies based on games?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, I do think that there basically have been good video game movies. They just weren't based on video games. I think both Snowpiercer and Edge of Tomorrow, essentially in my mind, function. Those are almost like perfect adaptations of video games that don't exist.
Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow is kind of a roguelike.
Yeah, but Edge of Tomorrow, even like just the mechanic of it is so embedded in the idea of how video games work, like respawning and continuing, and then Snowpiercer, just the left to right progression, like through a stage and then going into new levels like that. To me, those are video game movies. They just happen to be not based on video games.
I do really love some of the things he says in this interview, mainly the part about video game movies. Maybe not being necessarily good, but movies like Snowpiercer being essentially a video game movie about how they function as a movie and how they function really as like a video game story. He doesn't necessarily distinguish between it's not actually a video game or a movie, but it's the type of art. I thought that was so interesting. So we got to look at MovieWeb for a little bit more. Metal Gear Solid movie script is finished. More art revealed. We actually just turned in the script, Wagner says, and I think it's one of the best scripts I've ever read. It's one of the coolest, weirdest, most Hideo Kojima things. Even being involved with it, I look at it as someone who was like, I would make the hell out of this movie. But if I wasn't involved, then I would still look at that script and be like, holy shit.
Get the bit to make the Metal Gear movie.
Also correct.
Is that happening? Are you doing that?
We just turned in the script, and I think it's one of the best scripts I've ever read. It's one of the coolest, weirdest, most Kojima things. Even me being involved in it, I look at it as someone who was like, I would make the hell out of this movie, but if I wasn't involved in it, I would still look at that script and be like, holy shit.
He also talked about the idea of active versus passive experiences. In video games, the experience is active. In movies, it's passive. He wants to focus on the feeling that people get when playing the Metal Gear games, as opposed to slavishly trying to adapt the plot of any specific game. Whether or not this would all work in practice, the man is saying the right things and seems to be extremely passionate. And I get that same sense too when looking at the interviews with Jordan.
Those are my influences. That's the stuff that shaped me. Like, and I'm part of this first wave of directors who like grew up on it.
Yeah.
Like my reference points are the same as if it was a movie or a book. It's just that's a medium that I always grew up with.
As well as checking out his Twitter feed. In a Twitter post he posted about Metal Gear, some concept art while working on the script and working on the overall feel of what direction he possibly could go in. He enjoyed this project and this process so much. So here's some of these Twitter posts and clips. Some of this art looks amazing, but that's not necessarily the big news I really want to talk about. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to look at the Gamer post about it from Jamie Lauder, August 6, 2019. Everything we know about the Metal Gear Solid movie. This is the most recent news I could really find, and we'll get into it. One project we haven't heard a lot about lately is the rumored Metal Gear Solid movie. The film was announced over a decade ago, but to this day it hasn't even begun to prepare to go into production, even though it does have people behind it. We've been waiting for quite some time to see those giant nuke spewing walking tanks on the big screen, and that's so true. In contrast, Uncharted has dropped a release date with no director, no anything. So what do we prefer as a video game player trying to get our movies? Do we prefer the Metal Gear route, which is actually closer to about 13 years? Or do we want to go the Uncharted route? Again, over 10 years, has a actor cast as the leading man, yet no director since they currently lost it. It's almost as if we're choosing between two evils here. I think the Metal Gear game has more of a solid foundation to go on and isn't pushing so hard to get it out. Whereas I think Uncharted is going to have that problem of being way too rushed. I will take my time with Metal Gear Solid movie. Moving on to the next quote. But beyond that, this is a series that had some of the most memorable scenes in gaming history. From the first game along, we have the death of Spider-Wolf, the revelation that Gray Fox killed Naomi's parents, followed by a sacrifice and a harrowing torture scene, just to name a few. That's even going into the other games, which include rescuing child soldiers, the fight with Boss, the microwave hallway. This is a series filled with huge emotional moments, and many of them could easily translate to the big screen. A little preamble to this quote, they're talking about some of the weirdness that goes on in Metal Gear. But the fact is, Jordan has embraced some of this weirdness, has been quoted saying that he wants to tackle some of those elements that bring him to the big screen, because the video games tend to get a little weird sometimes, and mainstream audiences aren't really used to that or ready for that. We first started hearing about Metal Gear Solid all the way back in 2006. Hideo Kojima himself made the announcement, and there were some shockingly big names interested in the film. At one point, it was even rumored that Christian Bale was going to be Solid Snake, although that looks doubtful now. That's amazing. I think Christian Bale would have been really cool. However, the big news we really have to cover is who Jordan wants to play, who the internet wants to play, and who himself wants to play Solid Snake. And that's none other than Oscar Isaac.
Would you guys ever consider doing a video game movie?
You too, Ben?
I don't know why you're asking me.
Pikachu 2 Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, I would.
I mean, this game, this movie, in a lot of ways,
one.
it's very video
Metal Gear
gamey.
Solid, that's the one I'm
Really?
Yeah, that I'm throwing my hat in for that one.
Who'd you play?
Snake, man.
He has been in many movies you may or may not know, but regardless, he is an icon in the movie industry, and is a phenomenal Snake. I'm going to show you one of the pictures that was fan made for this, and I'm definitely going to get into some of the things that Kojima and Jordan said in regards to the movie. But just know that Oscar Isaac is a huge deal for this movie, and I cannot wait to see if it actually comes true, because as of now, he is not on the docket for the movie. It's an article by Dom Nero. Oscar Isaac wants to star in the upcoming Metal Gear Solid movie. That's great news. And in an interview, he actually says that he wants to, quote, throw his hat in for that role if the interviewer had asked if you would want to play in a video game movie. Vogue Roberts is the key element here that will hopefully set the Metal Gear film apart from the decades-long string of atrocious video game film adaptations. Unlike so many of the directors who have tried to conceptualize video games for the cinema medium, Vogue Roberts is a fan of video games. That's just so important when trying to do this, because he is a fan. And the fact that Oscar wants to play the character is just shocking, and here's some Twitter posts saying that the ball is in Oscar's court if he really wants to make this happen and it's not just all talk. I think it does want to be done by Oscar, definitely, but again, to get an icon, they say that that part hasn't even started yet. But the best part is finished, the script, and that's kind of the best news so far. Now, there has been radio silence for, I don't know, maybe a month or so regarding the Metal Gear Solid movie. The biggest news to come out lately was that the script was done. And then prior to that was Oscar wanting the role, and then prior to that, John Wagner getting cast as the director for the movie, and prior to that, or around the same time, Hideo Kojima actually really backed that choice. He actually said something along the lines of that he's the only one I would want to do the movie. Now, we have to talk about Metal Gear a little bit more here, just for the people who don't really know what Metal Gear is, even though I kind of explained it already. I'm going to show you something about how historic this is. Metal Gear Solid is an action-adventure stealth video game developed by Konami and released for the PlayStation in 1998. The game was directed, produced, and written by Hideo Kojima. Now, like I said, Hideo Kojima has moved on to other things in his career. However, this is still his baby, and all of this movie stuff started with him, and he approved of the director. Now, Kojima's out, so what does that really mean? It means that, in our hearts, since I'm such a fan, in my heart, I feel bad for Kojima not being able to be a part of his game being brought to the live cinema. It's live action. But that's just speculation that he's not going to be a part of it because Konami owns Metal Gear, all of it. And we're not even going to talk about the atrocious Metal Gear Survive that got released either. Nobody wants to see that in film at all or as a video game. So it's just a little sad there as a fan that Kojima's not going to see this baby hit that screen, but it's still a lot of news, and I think this news is actually better off than Uncharted. And I'll say that one more time. We have a script that's written that the director likes, so the director hasn't dropped out. Uncharted movie has been filled with directors dropping out, scripts being rewritten. Here we have the director and the script coming together, and that's what should happen first, right? When you're making a movie, you shouldn't cast your actor first before you have those other things. Cough, Uncharted, casting Tom Holland. And you shouldn't set up the world where the director has no input, making it a prequel. Cough, Uncharted, Tom Holland. This movie, while being in development for so long still, but not really in pre-production for so long, I love the chances of this movie, and I think it is a great movie that can easily translate to the big screen and mainstream audiences because of the subject matter, because of war, because of spies, because of those type of things. The limited action you really have to do, and the in-depth storytelling drama-like with sci-fi elements that you can put in here. I'm so excited for this, and I think you should be too. The reason they created these Twitter posts I'm showing right now, some more on the screen, is to generate buzz and hype. We don't want that to go away, and I'm not sure if this is a PlayStation Productions thing yet. I hadn't found really anything that says it's a specific PlayStation Productions part of that umbrella, because that umbrella has only been announced for the past 3 or 4 months, and this has been going on a lot longer. However, this could still serve as a jumping off and a platform for video games to be made to movies, even if it's not with PlayStation Productions. It still is still good for the genre that is soon to become a major genre, just like comics into movies, video games into movies. So I cannot wait for Metal Gear Solid the movie. Let me know in the comments, do you like the director? I sure do personally. I think it's a great choice because I can visibly see his passion. And if you can't see his visible passion, I suggest watching the videos, the interviews that he's done, and talking about the game. I actually have one more clip here from IGN. I'm gonna, send you off with that. A little bit more about this guy because he's really the guy spearheading it all. While Oscar's the guy, the leading role, we want him because he does look like Snake, and I think he could pull it off, and you can see his passion as well. It's about Oscar right now. So here's a little bit more of that clip.
Loving the franchise myself. So you turned in the first draft of the script. When do you hope to start shooting? Is that still up in the air?
My goal would be Comic-Con next year. We are at Hall H showing you something.
So that's my hope too, and I was going to ask you that.
That would be the goal. Right now I'm releasing concept art online every day that I just worked with a bunch of artists for fun while we were writing the script as just an exploration, because for me, I love this franchise so much. I wanted to see how these things felt mashed up. I wanted to see how they felt visualized. And so we're releasing that just as a thank you to the fans for being there for 31 years. It's the 31st anniversary of that franchise. And
wow, it's the 31st anniversary of that franchise?
The original game came out on the MSX 31 years ago this month. And so I'm just releasing that art as a thank you to say, look at this community. Look at how unique and special these games are. Thank you for being here. But yeah, my goal would be, if I can make this my next movie, I would love to. It's Hollywood works in bizarre and crazy ways, and you never quite know what's going to go and when it's going to go. But my goal would be to be here at Hall H, showing you something next year.
Well, that's my goal too, is to make sure that you can be at Hall H showing me something next year.
I'm glad we're aligned. Can you make some phone calls about that?
Yeah, let's call it.
And I really hoped you enjoyed this video. Let me know. Do you like the Oscar cast or possible cast? Do you like the director? Do you think the Metal Gear Solid movie could work? I mean, the little story blurb from IMDb, I'll show you right here. I mean, that little blurb about what the story's about, falls right in line with what Solid Snake could do. I'm not saying necessarily remake the games, even though I think if they started from Metal Gear Solid 1, which I think they are, given the fact that the story is so well written by Kojima, that you can do it, and you just have to learn how to translate it and add your spins and twists, especially since it's a new genre of movies. To it, I think you can do it, and that little blurb right there really set up the first game to me, I think. I mean, it basically starts off the same way. You have to infiltrate an area of terrorists. Like, the mainstream audiences can handle that, and then we can let them get a little weird. I'm so excited. Throw a like and a comment if you like this kind of movie talk based around video game adaptations. I'm torn between the next video. I don't know if it's gonna be Gears of War because I've never played Gears of War. So I've talked about the video game movie adaptations that I've personally played and have attachments to, like Uncharted and Metal Gear Solid, because that way I can really give how I feel about it as a fan standpoint. Or, you know, maybe doing Sonic is getting, you know, a movie, and that's been covered a lot. So I think maybe Gears of War could be up next. But let me know down in the comments if you know of any other video game franchises that are gonna be made into movies. I'll search around PlayStation Productions and see what I can find. Thank you so much. We've more than doubled our subs in the last week, and I've been working really hard trying to figure out this YouTube thing, and I appreciate you for sticking around, and really the comments. Talking to everybody has really, you know, grown my perspectives on everything. I'm not going to give you my who I think should be cast or that kind of thing in this video, because I think the foundation for the Metal Gear movie is super solid. Get it? Solid. I'm GK. Check back later for some more content. It's definitely coming. Doing another art video. Should have that up later tonight, and a live stream later tonight. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's the only Assassin's Creed I haven't played besides the Chronicles series, the little spin-offs for, I think it was the PSP, the then PSP games. But yeah, so stay tuned for all of that. I can't wait for this movie.